All right, hey, I just wanted to check in because I finished another book, and that is Eldest by Christopher Paolini. This is the second book in the Aragon Inheritance series, and it's a great one. It took me quite a bit of time to actually read this book. I've been having a really hard time reading lately. I'll kind of go into that more in a future video of I've had some personal stuff going on, so I haven't been reading a whole lot, and therefore I haven't been making a whole lot of YouTube videos. I think it's been 8 or 9 days since my last review. So I'm going to try to get back more into focusing more on reading, but it's been a lot of shit going on. But with that little aside out of the way, let's jump right into this book and this review. We start in this book just a handful of days after the events of the end of the first book. I think it's 3 or 4 days or something like that. That's all that has passed in between Aragon and Eldest, so it's pretty much immediate. Aragon is suffering from the scar and the curse left by Durza from the end of the fight of the first book, and the town is the Varden are kind of cleaning up, hunting down the remaining Urgles, kind of just getting everything situated, when their leader, Ajihad, dies. He ends up getting struck down by some Urgles, and at the same time, Murtagh and the twins, two of the Varden, go missing. They assume they've been killed. I think it's pretty obvious that they were captured, but they assume that they were killed because they find some bloodstained gloves, and Aragon assumes Murtagh is dead now. With the leader of the Varden dead, though, the council of the Varden hold this meeting, and they invite Aragon and Saphira into it because they want their blessing, essentially, to help bolster this new leader and help back this new leader, which they decide is going to be this woman named Nasuada. She's a really cool character, actually. I really like her. She becomes the new leader of the Varden. I think that was announced at the funeral of Ajihad. With Aragon and Saphira's dragon riding blessing, it helps her position a lot better. Now, at the end of the first book, Aragon had this vision dream of this distant elf summoning him, saying, "We need to train." So that is what Aragon decides to do. He needs to leave to go to this distant elfin land, and train up. So he ends up being accompanied by Oric, a dwarf, and Arya, the elf. And before they leave, they end up meeting with the Dwarven King Hrothgar, who gives him a gift as well. Essentially, all of these different races are trying to get Aragon to be on their side and be able to help speak for him, because he is the only dragon rider they really know of besides Galbatorix, the king, who is evil. All of these races are kind of trying to pull Aragon in their favor, but Aragon doesn't really seem to be influenced by anyone in particular, I don't think. Maybe the elves more so than others, but he wants to help everybody regardless. So Aragon ends up going over to that distant land to start his training, and a lot of stuff kind of goes on there. I'm not going to get into it because that's where we start to get into spoiler territory, but there is a lot of reveals and crazy stuff that happens just in this distant land before the climax of the story as well. So there is another story going on in this book, though, and that is of his cousin Roran, which I actually found his Roran story way more interesting than Aragon's story throughout this whole book. I was so much more invested in Roran. It very much is the story of Perrin in book 4 of the Wheel of Time, going back to his hometown, defending his hometown from the evil forces that are looking for them. Same kind of thing is happening here. In fact, Aragon and Eldest both have lifted a lot from the Wheel of Time. But we first see Roran in the Spine. He's hunting, and he comes across some guards that he figures out they're looking for him. He kind of camps nearby Carvajal, their hometown, his hometown, and he's watching these guards go in, and they're really monitoring the town. They're being assholes. They end up killing a villager and setting part of the town on fire, which ends up being the breaking point for the villagers. Obviously, they start to retaliate, fight back. They bring Roran in to fight. Everybody's kind of upset with Roran because they're blaming him for being there. All of the soldiers had been asking about Roran's whereabouts and things like that. and they've been kind of covering for him, and there's that dynamic of they're kind of resentful towards him for bringing the soldiers in, but at the same time they got to protect their town with him. So Roran ends up helping defend the village against the King's Guard. They end up repelling them, and they have another big battle of defending Carvajal, which is actually a really cool fight. During this time, also, Roran's love interest from the first book, the whole reason that he went away in the first place was to gain some money, to be able to come back and propose to Katrina, and he did it in this book. He decided to propose to her, and I'm saying "and" a lot, god damn. He ends up proposing to her. It ends up kind of not being for the best, though, because they use it against him. Katrina ends up getting captured, and Roran is pissed, Roran's upset, the village is kind of upset. They decide to pick up pretty much all of Carvajal and leave. They want to get away from where the king's soldiers know that they are based, so they decide to leave and go join the Varden, which is led by Nasuatano. They don't know that, but they decide that they want to go and join the Varden. So that's kind of his story throughout this book, is the defense of the town and then their adventure out to the Varden. Like I said, I thought Roran's story was actually extremely interesting. Aragon's is okay. It's kind of his training arc, so it's a little bit boring, but I think that's why Christopher Paolini put Roran's story in this as well. It feels like to balance the boringness of Aragon's training, which I appreciated. It made the story actually readable. The other thing I wanted to mention, actually, which I thought was hilarious, the baby that Aragon blessed in the first book. Aragon thought he had blessed this baby with an ancient phrase saying something along the lines of, guard this baby from harm. He fucked up on the guard part a little bit and said, essentially, that this baby will guard others from harm and is destined to. So this baby ends up feeling all of the pain and all of the suffering of all of those around her. And she ends up being able to speak like a full-grown woman. It is crazy. I'm very interested in her little plot points too. She was kind of introduced in this, and I think she might actually play a role in the future books, which is crazy to me. But yeah, so essentially he meant to bless a baby, ended up cursing the baby to feel all of the pain of those around her and have to defend those other people against the pain, not that she'll be defended against the pain. So I don't know, but this does lead up to a battle at the end. I think all of these books do. I think most YA, it feels like they kind of have to have something at the end to get younger adults' attention span and get them ready for the next book. I could be wrong, but that is how Aragon and Eldest both have been so far. I'm not going to go into the battle itself or the lead up or anything like that, but it is very, very good. It's a very rewarding finish to this book, and it does get me excited to read the next book. So that's where I'm going to leave it for now. I highly do recommend picking up this series, especially Aragon. The first book I actually think I preferred a little more than Eldest, but it's great so far. It's great. So I appreciate y'all for sticking around, and thanks.